Welcome to Cavs Corner. I'm Mitchell.
And I'm Brig.
And we're just a couple of brothers from Cleveland who are big Cavs fans. This is a lifelong dream for us to be podcasting about sports, specifically the Cleveland Cavaliers. We're excited to dive in and bring you intelligent, fun, and consistent analysis of the Cavs.
Yeah, so Mitchell, let's dive into it. On September 1st of 2022, the Cavs and the Utah Jazz made a blockbuster trade, bringing Colin Sexton to Cleveland, with Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, and Ochai Agbaji going to the Jazz, along with some future picks. We want to review that trade today and go over our thoughts and opinions on it. So let's go over the stats. Since 2022, since the trade was made, Donovan Mitchell averaged 28 points, 4 assists, and 4 rebounds in that first season. In 2023, he averaged 27, 5, and 4. So that's our baseline. And then we also have the stats for Colin Sexton, Lauri Markkanen, and Ochai Agbaji. In 22, Colin Sexton was limited by, but he still averaged 15 points, 2 rebounds, and 3 assists in about 24 minutes per game. In 2023, he began to average more playing time after Conley was traded, and he improved his averages to 19 points per game with 3 rebounds and close to 6 assists per game. Lauri Markkanen, of course, we know has had a breakout career since leaving Cleveland. He was an all-star and averaged 26 points, 9 rebounds, and shot 39% from three-point range in 2022. And in 2023, he averaged 23 points and 8 rebounds with continued excellent shooting percentages. Ochai Agbaji has been a bit of a disappointment since his high lottery draft pick. In his rookie year, he averaged 8 points, 2 rebounds, and 1 assist. And in his sophomore campaign, he averaged 5 points and 3 rebounds in 51 games with the Jazz before he was traded to the Raptors. So, Mitchell, my question to you is, how do you feel 2 years after this Donovan Mitchell trade? Do you think the Cavs got it right? Do you think the Jazz won the trade?
Yeah, so I think there's a few different ways to look at this. And there's one view where you can analyze the trade, kind of putting yourselves in the shoes of the Cavs 2 years ago when Lauri Markkanen was a good, solid starter, but certainly not the all-star level player he's become in Utah. And so analyzing it without that knowledge is one thing. But then looking back on it and seeing that he is an all-star caliber player, I think changes the analysis quite a bit. So let me give you, my thoughts have stayed fairly consistent throughout it all. I enjoy rooting for the Cavs, and I actually enjoy the rebuilding phase of basketball, the roster building and drafting and watching young players develop. And for me, I felt like we cut that short and expedited the process too soon by trading for Donovan Mitchell. Let's just say Lauri Markkanen never became an all-star caliber player like he did. I still feel like we went all in too early and on a player that wasn't at the caliber we needed. So while it's exciting to have an all-NBA type player like Donovan Mitchell on our squad and some of his incredible performances I've really enjoyed watching, but I would have preferred to kept building with the core with Darius and Jared Allen and Evan Mobley, building around them and seeing what they could do. You know, Darius and Jared had an all-star level campaign in 2021 or the 21-22 season. And Evan Mobley was runner-up and rookie of the year. And we had this budding young core. And then we just accelerated the track. And I think one of the people this hurt the most was Isaac Okoro, who had been recently drafted and never really got a chance to explore the studio space and improve his offensive game. He was immediately pigeonholed into this hopefully 3-and-D type role where there wasn't much 3 going on and it was mostly D. And so I really felt like it kind of stymied the progress of our young core, all while capping our ceiling at like an Eastern Conference Finals bid. Because if you look back, with the exception of Steph Curry, who is, you know, a generational type of player who changed the game of basketball, small guards just do not lead teams to championships basically ever as the best player on the championship level team. And so we went all in for a small guard and stymied the growth of our young core. I felt like way too early while mortgaging all our draft picks. So that's a lot. I have pretty strong feelings about it, but it's a good time to revisit it 2 years later. And that's all not even thinking about the fact that we traded away an all-star caliber player in Lauri Markkanen. So I'll stop there and give you a chance to respond and give me your answers, because I could keep going.
Yeah, I think for my answers, we have to take it in lens of the past, of the history. I remember in 2021, I remember going into that season, it was announced that Lauri Markkanen was going to be starting at the 3. And I remember being furious about that. I was like, this guy is not part of the core. He's not part of the future. Why don't we start Isaac Okoro at the 3? And then, of course, we all know what happened in 2021. We had a breakout year. We made it to the play-in game unexpectedly, and we flourished. The team had incredible chemistry. And by the end of that year, I was so glad that Lauri Markkanen was starting for the team. And then after the trade, I remember the day that I heard about the trade, I remember like my heart just dropped immediately. That was my gut reaction, was just, oh dang, this is not good for the Cavs to lose Lauri Markkanen and Colin Sexton. And funny enough, I was really excited about Ochai Agbaji. We all see what he became, but I was maybe unjustifiably excited about him. But we see what we gave up to get Donovan Mitchell. And yeah, he's been a great player, an all NBA caliber player, like you were saying. But I think it's, like you said, it's changed the expectations for the team. Instead of being a young, fun team that was up and coming, like you could even look at the Guardians that were playing that year as well. They were fun and up and coming. And we just completely changed our expectations to now there was pressure on guys. There was pressure on Darius Garland. There was pressure on Evan Mobley. And the ball was taken out of Evan Mobley's hands, so he couldn't develop into the player that he needed to become. And that pressure wasn't great for their progress, I would say. I think that they needed to come into it a little bit more on their own instead of being thrust into being all-star caliber players in their second, third, and fourth years. I don't think that that's what they needed. They needed to grow into that and to organically, I guess you could say, become those type of players instead of having that expectation and that pressure on them where Darius Garland was an all-star and then he wasn't an all-star and now he's a letdown. And Evan Mobley hasn't become an all-star yet, and that's viewed as a letdown instead of just letting him develop into that player that he's become, or that we all think that he can become. With that being said, I think in retrospect, I wish that we would have kept the team and kind of done more of that organic growth with drafting and developing. But also I can see the good side of it too. I'm thinking, and I think a lot of Cavs Nation is with me on this, of being excited with Kenny Atkinson coming in to really unleash and unlock Evan Mobley. At least that's been the focus of the offseason chatter. And it makes me excited for this year. Regardless of what happened in the past, I think Donovan Mitchell's he's an excellent player. Darius Garland obviously got injured and was kind of just coming back from that all year. And we had a coach that was more defensive minded that didn't really unlock Evan Mobley's offensive potential all that well. And it was just high pick and roll. That was basically our offense. With that being said, I think that we can still thrive. And I think we might have we jumpstarted ourselves. We jumpstarted ourselves to a higher ceiling immediately. But I don't know in the long run if that would ultimately be the highest ceiling that we could have had.
Yeah, I think you make a lot of good points. And to play devil's advocate against my own argument is, from the front office perspective, it's not every day that a player like this becomes available, right? So basketball fans, and especially those from Ohio or Cavs fans, will know Brian Windhurst of ESPN. He often talks about, like, you can't go shopping at the superstar store, just because you have the trade assets and the cap room to make a blockbuster trade and get a superstar. Usually there's only 1, 2, maybe 3 on the market at any given time. And even then, those probably aren't superstars. So you have to strike when there's opportunities. And the Cavs and Jazz have a proven track record of trading with each other. So there's an established relationship there. So I can understand, like, them seeing, look, there's this great player who became available. He's young. He fits the timeline of he doesn't disrupt the timeline of our young core and could really elevate our ceiling. And so let's push our chips in and go for it, because the young core had already shown enough of a baseline to say, like, we can build on this. So I understand it, but I also disagree with it. And take, for example, let's say we didn't make that trade, and I know you can't just judge a season based on the ultimate outcome, but losing in the first round to New York that next year, we could have done that, if not better, without Donovan Mitchell, without making that trade. Making it to the second round and then losing to the Celtics this past season, I think that's totally reasonable to say, like, that could have happened without the trade for Donovan Mitchell, especially if you bake in Lauri Markkanen's improvement. But even without that, think about Isaac and Evan and DG and Jarrett all growing together and making that constant improvement. And even Colin Sexton, a very polarizing player. But I think, 2 years later, you could expect, or at least not be shocked by a first round win. And so really, what did we accomplish in end results? And also, like, what was the cost? And we are not even paying most of the cost yet, because those draft picks are really part of the most valuable part of that deal. And that bill won't come due for a while. Not to mention, it hampers our ability to trade for more players, because we basically emptied the cupboard of all of our assets.
Yeah, you look at our offseason this year, and we have exactly the same roster coming back. I don't know if that's ever been done before in Cavs history. Maybe in NBA history. It probably has been done in NBA history, but that is a rare thing to do. And I think the primary reason for that was because we were so hampered. We couldn't go out and really get the guys that we wanted to get. We didn't have very many tradable assets, tradable contracts, with everybody either making way too much or not enough, either on their rookie deals or on more expensive deals. So I can see that. And you look at it, and you can also look at it through the lens of, well, we basically traded Colin Sexton and Lauri Markkanen. Those were the two players from that season for Donovan Mitchell. And Donovan Mitchell has absolutely been an upgrade from Colin Sexton. I think we look back on those Sexland days, and I mean, that was polarizing in and of itself. People were thinking, well, can two small guards win? We still have two small guards. But Donovan Mitchell is significantly elevated over what Colin Sexton was and what he's become since then. So I think really the thing that the thorn in the side is what Lauri Markkanen has become and the chemistry that we had with him. But I also think that there is that opportunity now with Evan Mobley, thinking at the time, getting rid of Lauri, that would allow Evan Mobley to flourish, that he could step out and expand his three-point capabilities. And that just really didn't happen under the JB tutelage. So I think that I almost look at it as maybe we should have traded or changed coaches at the same time as trading those players, but you couldn't do that. You couldn't do that with JB Bickerstaff coming off the year that he did, with having such a surprising result of having really low expectations and really high performance. So I think that this next year, and maybe people say this every year, but I think that this next year will really be kind of tell the story of this trade, of whether or not it was success or a failure, with a new head coach that is more offensive minded and might be able to get more out of these players, because Donovan Mitchell's not an offensive guy, and so having JB as his coach didn't allow him to really run the offense and be the engine as well as he might have been under a more offensive minded head coach.
Yeah. Sorry, just to correct you, you meant JB wasn't an offensive guy. I think you said Donovan, but yeah. For sure. And you think about right, with the common phrase, there's only one ball, right? And so you already had a ball dominant guard who'd proven to be an engine of an offense that could take you to the playoffs. We ended up losing in the play-in tournament, but prior to the play-in tournament, we would have been in the playoffs, and it's reasonable to expect some additional growth or a bounce here or there. We could have been in that year. And so not only do you take the ball out of Darius's hands some, but you're also, I think we talked about, like, not giving Isaac and Evan that room to explore. and to grow their game. A lot of times when these high profile prospects come into the league, they're on horrible teams and they get to take their lumps, not in the spotlight and not impacting winning, essentially. Like you look at Jalen Green in Houston from the same draft class as Evan Mobley, and he's been able to do whatever he wants, and the jury's still out on him, but Evan never got that experience, right? He basically from the jump had to be a player who could fit into a winning team, which is good in some respects, but also now we're clamoring for more of an offensive game from him. And it's a little unfair because he's never had the opportunity to develop that in the season. And let me just say, all this is, I think Donovan's an awesome guy. He seems great. I love his commitment to the city, getting him to extend. I have mixed feelings about that because, of the roster construction, but I do think it's a big deal for the city of Cleveland to be able to extend an athlete like him. So I don't mean this to be all negative, but just looking at it from a basketball standpoint, it's not what I would have done. And I find myself disappointed in it at times, especially when Donovan it goes into one of his more ball dominant phases, which, to be fair, he's becoming more of a distributor, and we'll see how that goes with Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm excited to see what this upcoming season holds. I love that you mentioned his contract. That's another thing that really is proving more that we got more out of this than we may have thought. Nationwide, the sentiment was, well, you're getting a 2-year rental in Donovan Mitchell and that's it, or 1-year rental and then you trade him. And the Cavs went ahead and proved that Cleveland's a city where he wants to be, that this is an organization that can bring in a superstar and get them to stay and kind of earn their trust and earn their respect. So I'm excited to see what that looks like this year. There's no pressure of a contract hanging over Donovan Mitchell's head anymore. There's no pressure of a contract hanging over Evan Mobley's head anymore. He got extended as well. Now it's just go out there and prove it. This is a prove it season for the team. And across the East, the landscape has changed a bit, especially with the Knicks making that recent trade for Karl Anthony Towns. But I'm excited to see what this brings. I think we have an exciting team. I don't know what exactly the expectation should be for this season, but I'm excited just to see how we play and to see how we start out.
Yeah, and I think that'll be the topic of probably our next video is what should the expectations for this upcoming season be? What will they be? And what we can expect. So definitely stay tuned for that. We'd encourage everyone to subscribe to the channel so you don't miss us. We're going to try to do this as regularly as possible. We're aiming for once a week, especially once the season ramps up so that we can recap all the games and progress and news. But let me ask you one more question before we wrap up today. If Utah came to you right now, and let's ignore any contract situation here. Utah came to you right now and said, I will trade you Lauri Markkanen for Donovan Mitchell straight up. Would you do it?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think
the fit?
Yeah, the fit is so much better. It would allow Darius to get back to what he was, a distributing point guard. And he can hit the big shot, but he can also distribute, and the ball moves a little bit more freely around the offense. Again, this is coming in the lens of what was under the JB Bickerstaff era and the way that he ran the team. And we all saw how clunky that offense could get at times. And the times that thrived most was when either Darius or Donovan was off the floor. And especially that long run where DG was hurt with a broken jaw. That's when the team thrived, And so I think that under the JB era, I would say absolutely I'd make that trade. We'll see how it looks like with Kenny Atkinson, but I think that having one guard who can play and distribute and not have to worry about getting his touches, I think that would be a significant upgrade for this team.
Yeah, it's a bit of a tricky question because it's definitely a talent downgrade, but I think I would do it too because of the fit. So that just puts the entire thing in perspective. So we definitely won't have this negative probably of a topic moving forward. We want to stay optimistic and fun and keep it light, but also intelligent. So like I said, please subscribe. We know it can be tough out there for Cavs fans looking for intelligent analysis of the team. There really isn't as many options as some other teams might have. And so hopefully we can fill a small void in the market there. And so if you like this, subscribe, give us a chance, tell your friend, and let us know, what do you think of the Donovan Mitchell trade? Please drop us a comment or a review and let us know. We'd love to hear from you. And stay tuned, because we'll talk to you soon.